Lucas is a senior VP of strategy at Automic. And Lucas, just some background on Chris. He's done a little bit of research on you and learned that you've written a couple fiction or nonfiction books, I guess they were.
Both fiction and nonfiction, that's right.
Yeah, okay. Awesome.
The covers confused me for a second. I was trying to figure out. It was interesting. But yeah, I write quite a lot about DevOps, and I haven't come across Automic yet. I have come across some of the companies you've been related to, but tell me more about Automic, and I guess how it now fits into the CA Computer Associates kind of big picture.
Yeah. So let me kind of set the stage by saying that it's not a surprise that you haven't run into Automic in the DevOps world, because in my opinion, Automic is not a DevOps company. So I think that DevOps, for people that are actual practitioners of it and not just trying to write blog articles about it, anybody who actually knows what DevOps is knows that DevOps came out of developers trying to get around operations. And there seems to be this confusion in the DevOps world where people are starting to forget that and starting to think that DevOps is somehow this merger between development and operations into a wonderful, collaboration that they now get to work together with tools that serve them both, which is not true at all. In fact, I think that more than ever, operations is being forgotten about, left behind, ignored. They're given tools that don't work for them, don't solve their needs, because fundamentally, I think developers and operations, in my opinion, are never going to get along because their core values are very different. They think differently. They care about different things, and they're never going. It doesn't matter if you put them in the same team or the same groups, or you create this DevOps name and say, okay, now Dev and Ops are working together. They're not going to, because they care about different things. I think fundamentally developers care about features and speed, being able to iterate quickly, and operations cares about reliability and robustness, scalability, and those things don't get along. Usually new features break things. And to a developer, it's like, okay, that's fine. We'll just fix it as it breaks. To operations, it's the epitome of a nightmare. And so you just can't give operations the same tools that developers are using to write code, which is what's kind of going on right now in the industry. There's this push to try to make operations use Jenkins and Chef and Puppet, but those tools are not for operations, and it's not helping anybody to try to force a round peg into a square hole. So I'll pause there. I have much more about how Automic fits into this picture, but I wanted to set the stage first. Does that make sense and jive with?
Yeah, because the interesting thing, when I look down the kind of list of what we offer, the top item is some of the more familiar territory, continuous delivery, application release, etc. But then you have other categories like SAP, Oracle, finance automation, which I guess would traditionally be more sort of operations type tasks, and it's not something you'd normally see listed under in inverted commas, DevOps offering. So I guess that's what you're alluding to, kind of offering automation for other sorts of services as well, not just developer infrastructure.
Exactly. In fact, I think that that's one of the most interesting and underappreciated, underlooked at aspects of the technology cycle right now, is that all of this focus has been on developers and DevOps for at least the last 10 years. And developers have become kind of the kings of technology. Operations has been left behind, and the tools that operations is being told they need to use don't actually solve their problems. And that's kind of why I joined Automic, is because Automic has created tools that address a need that is much more prevalent and widespread than kind of what the DevOps tools are focusing on. Because at this point, like the DevOps tools out there are pretty well established, and they pretty much solve the problems of writing code faster. So there isn't really that much need for new DevOps tools for developers. But as you alluded to, there is a need for automating and what I consider leveling up operations, bringing operations up to the same level that developers have been raised to thanks to DevOps over the last 10 years. I think operations has been left behind and forgotten about. And Automic is a company that is really focusing on providing the similar benefits to what DevOps, because fundamentally when you think about DevOps is all about shortening the application lifecycle. And so that's its focus. That's all it cares about. But it approaches solving that problem from a developer angle.
It's actually. Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, it was actually interesting. I can't go into too much detail because it was kind of an internal interview for not necessarily for public release, but I was speaking to someone who works within an operations type department at a company today that is well known in the sort of DevOps space, and they were talking about exactly this, how they wanted to use their tool for other teams and specifically for the HR team in this case. And right. Why not? and
the reason why not is very straightforward to me. The reason why not is that those tools were built for developers with the developers' concerns in mind. And you can't just repurpose a tool that was built for one kind of person with one kind of needs and say everybody else that has different needs and different concerns gets to use it too. And so Automic comes in, and the focus of Automic is the same as the focus of DevOps. So the focus of DevOps is reducing the application lifecycle, making it faster, easier to deploy applications. But Atomic's tools approach it completely differently, because instead of approaching it from the perspective of developers and helping developers write their code and deploy it faster, the Automic tools solve the same problem from the perspective of operations. And I'm not sure how familiar you are with some of the tools out there. I don't know if you're hands-on with things like Jenkins and are very familiar with that. Is that
I'm certainly more familiar with that suite of tools than things like SAP and Oracle. So I kind of understand the workflows, definitely.
Good. So that's all you need to understand why it doesn't fit, and why you can't just take the DevOps tools and apply them other places, because they weren't built for that. They were built specifically to make developers' lives easier, the code deployment cycle. So because they were built with that in mind, like specifically and primarily, you have problems when you're trying to translate that to move workloads into enterprise production deployments. So for example, if you're taking Jenkins and you want to use Jenkins to deploy something into production, if you're a developer and you're just testing something, Jenkins can just, look at the code, check it out from the repository, run the tests, and deploy it. But in production, deployment is not just a simple process. There are multiple stages. You usually have to, update the load balancers. You have to do database migrations. You have to do different stages. You have to update the application servers. And if the deployment process breaks at any one point in that pipeline, the problem with Jenkins is that Jenkins can only do one stage of each of those pieces of the pipeline. So what you have to end up doing is you have to stitch a bunch of Jenkins. So one Jenkins is for load balancers, one Jenkins is for application servers, one Jenkins is for the database migration. And if it breaks, then it has to roll back one way in one Jenkins. So what you end up with is a patchwork of duct taped together Jenkins installations, which is obviously not what it was intended. That it was not thought out for production operations in mind. It was thought out for developers to throw code against the wall and see if the unit tests break.
Sure. Let's dig into a little bit more detail, because there's kind of under the what we offer on Automic, there's lots and lots of different options and solutions. So what actually is it at the moment, or will it be?
Yes.
Yeah.
So there are two main products from Automic. One is a release automation product, and one is a workload automation product. We have other products, but the two major ones are release automation and workload automation. And for somebody who is not familiar kind of with a lot of the traditional operations space, kind of familiar with more developer technologies, I can explain workload automation to people like that very easily. If you're not familiar with what workload automation is already, it's basically, are you familiar with cron tabs?
Yeah. And
So
the audience will be as well, don't worry. So
yeah, it's basically a mega cron tab. So it's a centralized cron tab that works across any platform, any operating system, legacy operating systems. Make sure that you can run and manage your cron tabs across all of your servers in a centralized way, and throw out FTP. We have our own proprietary FTP replacement, so that you don't have to rely on technologies that fail more often than they work. If a file is mid-transfer and there's a network blip, it's not going to. We have the ability to resume the file transfers, and so we can deal with all of your servers. And if you're looking at like point of purchase and different kind of legacy hardwares, we can support it all, and we can automate it all. And so the workload automation really allows you a centralized way and an object-oriented way of managing cron.
Can I connect these various sorts of pipes, as it were? So can so for example, we have a feature here for continuous delivery of packaged apps, and then there's finance automation. I don't know, is there a way to sort of connect the delivery of a new version of our packaged app with something in another area of the company, or is each kind of...
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay, cool.
That's what this is built for, because the fundamental aspect of what this is built for is dealing with complex workload environments. And remember the multi-stage Jenkins problem that I mentioned? With Automic Release Automation, we built from the ground up an operational first approach to deploying applications.
Okay, so it's company perspective instead of the developer kind of kicking it off. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's operational perspective, because operations has to be concerned about, how many app servers do we have? Are they all running?
Can we afford
making sure that, and making sure that in fact, for the application deployment workflow, you can have all of the Boolean logic for every step within one workflow. So you're not stitching together separate instances of the release automation to get it working. You have one logical workflow for deploying an application start to finish. You can track it, you can see the rollbacks, and you can manage the entire process. And it's very, very friendly to people who are primarily concerned with what could go wrong.
Okay. So, I mean, in traditional kind of traditional form of sort of more enterprise offerings, it's not something anyone can just jump in and test very easily. So give me a couple of, I can see a few clients here that people have probably heard of. Any quick kind of use case examples in the real world of what people are doing that you're allowed to share?
So this is difficult because I know lots of them that you use every single day. You pretty much can't go a day living without having Automic in your world. But I don't know which ones I'm allowed to talk about or not. I don't know if I don't have my authorized marketing
even
person to tell me which ones I'm allowed to talk about.
Fender, Warner Brothers, and John Deere, which covers a fairly wide gamut of of industries. So
yes, and we have thousands of customers, and they are very name brand. There's no way you can interact in the world and use Automic.
I have to keep this call fairly short because I'm jumping on another one at past. So just to sort of wrap up, what's new? What are you kind of wanting to shout about at the moment, and what's coming up in the near future?
Yeah, the things we're working on right now, I'm very, very excited because in kind of the tech world right now, artificial intelligence seems to be all the rage, but it seems like everybody's talking about 6 different kinds of artificial intelligence, It seems like, and it's the same ones every time. It's Siri and Alexa, and it's like, it's getting tiring hearing, okay, self-driving cars, and I don't know if you've read Kevin Kelly's book, The Inevitable.
No, but I have been to lots of AI and chatbot events recently, so I might have come across some of the concepts.
And chatbots, it seems like it's another one that's like overdone and underdelivered. And what Kevin Kelly says, Kevin Kelly's one of the co-founders of Wired magazine, and he wrote a terrific book just about a year ago called The Inevitable. And what he talks about is that we're also focused on the 6 versions of artificial intelligence that we know about today, that we lose track of the thousands and thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of use cases where it's not being applied today.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And it's hard to imagine where artificial intelligence is going to be having great effect, that it isn't currently, Google's not doing it, so nobody's paying attention. And right now, I think one of the biggest areas that is underrepresented in artificial intelligence is development and operations.
Business intelligence, as it were.
Using artificial intelligence. Using artificial intelligence for running and building technology itself, which should be a game changer.
Yeah. But would disturb a lot of people.
It's Watson's amazing, and teaching Watson to be a doctor, awesome. But what if Watson-like technology was used to help make running computer systems and building computer systems more efficient? Then you could be more efficient at teaching Watson how to be a doctor. So it's a game changer because it can affect every other version of artificial intelligence.
So I guess that's kind of the company. You personally, I mean, looking at your kind of history, you've written books from Ruby and on PaaS. You Worked for a company that was acquired by CenturyLink, which I was actually on their website earlier today looking at something else. You've written a few books, you talk a lot, and you also work a lot in the kind of, I'm assuming your blog, the software craftsmanship movement. So kind of what's next for you personally as well? Or are you just focusing on Automic at the moment?
Yeah, right now I'm focusing on Automic. I think that there's a huge opportunity in this space that is underappreciated. I like to go into the early stages of growing trends instead of focusing on kind of, everybody is beating their heads on chatbots and containers.
Yep.
And that's not interesting. Chatbots and containers aren't interesting to me because everybody else is doing it. I'm interested in what's next. And the growing wave to me is in helping the operations people get the same treatment that developers have had for the last 10 years.